What's up, scholars? Welcome back to another video. I'm back. It's been a rough month. After everything that I had talked about with y'all on the community post and in my other video, I ended up getting sick. I ended up having strep, so I couldn't talk or breathe without a lot of struggle. So that limited a lot what I could do over the weekend and how I approached this One Piece section. So I made the executive decision because I had been so out of breath. My voice sounded awful, and it was just rough time just to do anything. I made the executive decision to not do the read with me and just do this One Piece review to talk about this section of One Piece and Kuma's backstory. I just decided to go ahead and read Kuma's backstory on my own. I'm kind of glad I did. That would have been a really hard one to react to for me. So glad I was able to just do that on my own. I am very sorry that I didn't get to do a read with me, but I will make it up to y'all as a small token of my apology. My Patreon, as of today, is now live. So if y'all want to go onto my Patreon, as of now, all of my One Piece videos should be up, should be active. So if you want to go check out those videos on there, those will all be on there, and we'll be doing some community posts and everything else later on, either next week or something like that, and still getting Discord together. But I decided to do Patreon first and just kind of give that as a thank you for being so patient with me. Thank you for understanding. And I'm sorry for being away for 2.5 weeks or more. I don't remember. I think it was 2. I don't remember. It's been a while. I'm out of practice doing the video. But yes, if you want to check out my Patreon, the link will be down in the description below, and I'll also tag it in the comments. So if y'all want to check it out, that's great. If not, I understand. That's great too. But I did want to let y'all know that the Patreon is going to be live as of today, so y'all can go check it out. So before we go on, if my voice sounds a little weird at any point in time, I apologize beforehand. I'm mostly better now, but if I talk for a long time, my voice kind of wears out a little bit and I just get a little tired. So if I look a little out of it towards the end of this video, there's a reason, but it's fine. Other than that, I think I've got all the housekeeping kind of settled. Thank y'all all so much for being so patient with me. Thank you all for the awesome messages y'all have been sending me. I appreciate them. We are back for good. I'm getting back to our normal schedule, and I will be catching up to One Piece next week. This review covers from 1089 to 1103. So I have like 4 chapters left before I'm caught up. As of right now, I don't know if there's going to be another chapter by the time I do my next review. There might be. I don't know. Because I've never been a week to week reader, so I don't know when Oda posts his chapters or anything like that. I just see that there's a new chapter, but now I have to start paying attention to that. Next week we'll be catching up, so I will still be keeping my promise of catching up to One Piece by the end of February. It just looks a little bit different than I originally planned it, so sorry for the inconsistency for the past few weeks, but we're back. We're back on schedule, and I'm so out of practice on this. But let's go ahead and get into this video and talk about the insane stretch of chapters that Oda just dropped on us, and Kuma's backstory will take up a majority of this video, and I still want to do just a separate backstory, separate video just dedicated to his backstory. So let's go ahead and start. So this section starts with the news of Garp's disappearance spreading around. So everybody's been talking about how he disappeared. And we also get the news because of the mother flame that Imu had launched, that the water levels have risen by 1 meter, I believe it was, which is insane. And we kind of get to see some of the effects of that across the world in different places that we've seen. And we get back to Egghead, and the island is surrounded by like 100 ships. It is a or worse than a buster call. There's more people, more government ships there at Egghead than there were on O'Hara, which is wild and insane. And it makes me worry about my people, because you have Kizaru there along with other vice admirals, but you also have Saturn there, and Saturn's made his appearance. And I hate him just as much as I thought I would, which is expected. So there's like this whole hostage situation essentially on Egghead right now that's happening, and it is very stressful. I do like as they're talking about like how this is worse than O'Hara, some of the crew members are looking to Robin and asking if she's okay. I thought that was so sweet, because it's like they know how much that affected her when she was little and growing up, and how it's plagued her, and for them to just turn around and be like, oh, Robin, are you okay? Such a small moment, but I thought that was so sweet. Then we get another hostage situation with York calling the 5 elders to negotiate a deal of, you know, like, if you get me off the island, make me a celestial dragon, promise me I'll be safe. To which the elders agree, but then she's like, okay, but first you have to come rescue me, because Straw Hat Luffy has me. And all the Straw Hats are there, and she is tied up while they're all just around her and talking to the 5 elders. Luffy talking to the 5 elders is so wild and bizarre. Him announcing that he's Luffy, he's gonna be the king of the pirates to them, and saying like, you better call off your ships because I've got Vegapunk here. And his negotiating skills not being very good, but them talking to him regardless, trying to get more information out of him, and Robin being the one to tell him like, no, hang up the phone. The 5 elders are discussing, or I think it's just Saturn at this point, discussing the 3 things that they want to save. I think it was York, there was the plant that not like a plant, but like a power plant that created the mother flame, and there was something else. Forgive me if my memory is not the greatest right now. The Punk Records brain. That was the last one. So that's the 3 things that they're focusing on, making sure get out alive in this situation. And they're starting to plan their moves. Kizaru is gonna start making his move soon because he's there. And oh boy, Kizaru in this section just... I can't help but like him. Like his nonchalant attitude, the way he deals with things, but also like there's just something about him that makes me feel like he's not totally on board with all of this. Just some of his mannerisms, some of the things he says, and like he's a very hard character to read because of his mannerisms, because of how he holds himself. But this was like the first really personal glimpse that we get with Kizaru, and because of that, it makes me feel like he's not really on board with everything that's going on. Like he still has a strong sense of justice, and I don't think that'll change, but he's just really compelling to me right now. That might change in the next few chapters, it might not, I don't know, but Kizaru's on my mind a lot right now. Borsellino. But he's gonna be on his move, or he's gonna be making his move soon. And as they're talking about this, we get a funny little tidbit of Seraphim Boa not being able to go against Luffy. Luffy orders or asks her to turn everybody back to normal, and she does, because she has the same DNA as the real Boa, and she's still just as weak to Luffy as the real Boa is. I thought that was really funny. So they concoct a plan to escape with Vegapunk and figure out how they're gonna get on the ship, how they're gonna get out of here, escape all the ships and everything. So they're trying to get in position to do that when Kizaru comes onto the island and he fights against Sentomaru, and this hurts because he and Sentomaru actually have a really good past together. Like, they were good friends. Like, Sentomaru looked up to Kizaru, he learned from Kizaru, he admired Kizaru, and Kizaru seemed to really care, and still does really care about Sentomaru, and it makes their fight really emotional and impactful, and it makes it a lot more tragic than it could have been, because these are two people who have kind of grown up together. I mean, we saw them all the way back on Saobody interacting and fighting together, and then here they're as enemies because Sentomaru has put all of his faith in Luffy, because Luffy can save the man who saved his life, which is Vegapunk. And so Sentomaru will put himself against another man he respects and cares about just to save Vegapunk. It's really sad. It's such a good fight, and I do like that even though Sentomaru loses, Kizaru doesn't kill him. Kizaru doesn't finish him off. He hurts him very, very badly, but he doesn't kill him off. Which I think is just maybe a testament to their bond also, and a little bit more to Kizaru's feelings about all of this. You have Lucci acting once Kizaru is on the move. He tries to go after Vegapunk. Stussy interferes and ends up getting vitally hurt. I'm not sure if she's alive or not, but she takes the hit for Vegapunk so that he can get out alive. And then Zoro starts to fight against Lucci. Their fight is really cool, and I like Zoro's little one-liners about how saying that, you know, if he can, how he wants to beat Lucci, because he's like, well, if you can't even beat me, you don't even deserve to go against our captain. And kind of riling Lucci up, but giving him the respect he deserves in a way of saying, like, no, I know you fought our captain before, but you had to go through me now. It's really cool. I like their fight. It's really fun. And then while that's happening, poor Kaku gets left behind. Sanji puts him in like a bubble from a bubble gun. And poor Kaku didn't even know that Lucci was on the move again. And Sanji's like, yeah, he left you behind. Which is really sad. Poor Kaku. I actually kind of feel sorry for him. It starts progressing, and then suddenly Kizaru is up because he's light. He can go up through the little shield that they have, so he's up with everybody, and he starts attacking. Luffy is starting to do counterattacks on him, and then Bonnie ends up getting thrown out into the shield and down below. But then Sentomaru saves her. He gets up and saves her because they have a past together. They have a history together too. That panel of him standing there holding her in his arms is just so good. While this is happening, before I talk about Luffy versus Kizaru, because their match is so much fun, we have Kuma on the move. He was at Mary Joy, and I'm pretty sure the reason he went there first is because he was looking for Bonnie. He was kind of, in his computed brain, figuring out what the next moves were, where she would be, and then going to her. Which is so sad. But then we also have this, like, the giant that they found, like the armor that they found on the island on Egghead, starts to wake up and starts awakening once Luffy goes back into Gear 5 and grabs Kizaru. Is it because Luffy's like in a certain vicinity of said armor in that form, or is it just something else is triggering its awakening? But I think it might be because Nika's here. And oh my goodness, I'm skipping around a lot, I know, I'm sorry. Bonnie, Kuma, and Nika's relationship is so cool and interesting, and oh my gosh, even now there's the Skypiea callbacks from Kuma and Bonnie wanting to go to Skypiea because Nika's a sun god, so maybe he's gonna be in the sky closer to the sun, to when Kuma and Bonnie and Sentamaru and Kizaru are all together during his experiment phase and while she's getting treatment, and they're all dancing around a fire in these same forms that they were dancing in Skypiea, in the same position that Luffy comes back as Nika is seen as. Oh my goodness, just all the symbolism, and it's so good. That's soldier thing is awakening. And then we have Luffy versus Kizaru. His fight with him, he starts off in Gear 4 and is going against Kizaru until he gets blasted out of the shield thing. And then he comes back in Gear 5, just giant Gear 5, reaching out and grabbing Kizaru, being like, oh, that was a little bit spicy. That was so funny to me. I love Luffy's creativity and goofiness just being on full display when he's in Gear 5. And the way he's able to just kind of like, even though Kizaru is a serious opponent and he's having a really hard time because of the type of devil fruit Kizaru has, he still is able to be goofy and find jokes, and like this Nika personification still shines through even in a situation like this, even in a fight against Kizaru. But their fight is just so much fun and I love it. And I love how through all the hits that Luffy ends up taking, all the things he dodges from Kizaru, the way he's trying to manipulate his body to get to Kizaru, and then he ends up like pretty much knocking Kizaru silly, like making him lightheaded and dizzy to the part where he has to fall down. He's like, yeah, I can't move for right now. It's so funny because he didn't beat Kizaru, but he incapacitated him long enough for what they thought they needed, until Saturn decides to come and make his appearance on the island, and he looks like the bad boss guy from Monsters Inc. and with flames on his back. Water News. He looks like Water News from Monsters Inc. with just flames from his awakened powers. That's what he reminds me of. So yes, he comes down and starts trying to wreck everything, and there's something about his powers that makes people unable to move, which is interesting, but they're able to get Luffy out of the way from one of his attacks, but he does have Bonnie, and Bonnie stabbed him. It was going for the kill because it is Saturn's fault that Kuma's dead. And she's trying to get her revenge, and he grabs her and he's like, yeah, I'm not worried about you. And that's when we get Kuma's flashback. Kuma's backstory starts off with Kuma being born. We get literally from the very beginning of his life up into the present time. And it is devastating all the way through. Like, just pure, like there's happiness and there's fun times, but it's just pain. It's painful all the way through. And this is one of the most devastating backstories in One Piece. It's like in the top 3, if not top 2. Top 3 for sure. I mean, it's just heart-wrenching all the way through. And I'm definitely going to be rereading Kuma's backstory when I'm not sick. And when my mind isn't in a fog, because it was kind of in a fog when I read it. But I revisited it, but I want to revisit it again afterwards just to kind of get a fresh perspective on it. But my goodness, this backstory hit so hard. And there were certain points. It was a painful experience to read this because there were just certain panels of Kuma's backstory, especially towards the end of the backstory, that hit so hard that it just took my breath away. I couldn't breathe. For more than one reason. I couldn't breathe reading that backstory. And it was heavy. Y'all warned me that Kuma's backstory was heavy and it was painful. And even with your warnings, it was still a lot. But we get Kuma's backstory, and he is a buccaneer, part of the buccaneer race. His father was a buccaneer, and because of that, his family is targeted, and he and his family end up getting sold into slavery to the celestial dragons, of course. Every time I say to myself, the celestial dragons can't get worse, Oda comes in and just proves me wrong for the fun of it, and I'm really tired of it. I'm really tired of him coming and telling me how much worse the celestial dragons can be. They've done enough, and I'm ready to see them go. They end up enslaved. Kuma's mother dies in captivity, and it's just, it's not it's not a good time. Kuma ends up getting away because he gets sent to this island because the celestial dragons want to play a game and claim this island as their own, just for funsies, because they want the resources there, and who cares if there's people there. We'll just tell them people are targets and dogs and animals and stuff, and just play around with their lives. Make them count for points. But through this game, he ends up meeting Eva, who was here as a child. This is how they met. They knew each other from all the way back then, which just recontextualize a lot I know about Eva and Kuma's friendship. It really does. But also, he meets Jenny, Eva's sister, which I didn't even know Eva had a sister. Yeah, that was painful too. They kind of team up, and Kuma ends up being a distraction so that they can get people out, and they all end up being able to escape and survive. But that was God Valley. That was where Garp showed up and Roger showed up, and that big incident on God's Valley occurred because the Rocks pirates showed up. We finally got our explanation for what happened there, kind of. And it was just as crazy as I imagined it to be. But they were able to escape. And after they escape, after Kuma ate the pawpaw fruit, Eva tells him he's got the hands of liberation now, which, because of that connection to Nika and how much Kuma looks up to Nika, having hands of liberation that can help free people. Y'all, this is just painful all the way through. Eva ends up leaving, and Jenny and Kuma grow up together in the Sorbet Kingdom, and you can tell, especially as they get older, you can tell they love each other, but Kuma, because he is of the Buccaneer race, he doesn't want to endanger Jenny by getting involved with her, so he continually turns her down. And Kuma, using his own powers to help people, because he's a pastor, he's in the church, and he uses his powers to help people get rid of their pain, and then he takes all that pain on by himself because he's like, if I don't do it, it's just going to go back to the original owners, and I can't have that. So every week, he takes all that pain upon himself, and Jenny's there helping nurse him back to health, and Kuma's climbed the ranks of my top 10 One Piece characters. And it's just the amount of love and care that Kuma has for people in general. Not just the people he loves and cares about, but for just people in general. Like, he genuinely wants to find a way to get along with everybody, to appease everybody. And when that can't happen, he still is like, okay, but I'll put my life on the line to protect the ones I love, to make sure they're okay, because his life is never as important as anybody else's in his mind. It's always somebody else first. It's always somebody else before him. And that unconditional love and self-sacrifice that he has just melts my heart. It hurts my heart. And how he presents himself to others, how he always puts up this brave face and, you know, pretends everything is okay, and then behind closed doors he's suffering, he's worrying about things. It continues throughout all of his life, even when he's a revolutionary, even when he's just the king of the kingdom, when he's being a father, because Bonnie's always like, oh, Dad, you're such a coward, you don't fight, blah, blah, blah. Like, oh, I hope he's okay because he doesn't fight. And yet he's like the toughest of them all. Like, he, not only is he just a great fighter, but like, he's literally just so mentally and spiritually, emotionally tough to just fight through every single thing that comes across his path, that comes across his life, and he faces everything head on with a smile, with love and compassion. And that is such a hard thing to do, especially when you've suffered so much. Like, he has suffered persecution, he's suffered loss, he's suffered all sorts of things, and yet he still loves so purely. He's one of the best characters in One Piece. By far one of the best characters in One Piece. And we get to the point where where Jenny is captured and sold to these celestial dragons to be a wife, and ends up contracting a sickness that ends up being what kills her. She escapes, she goes back to the Sorbet Kingdom, Kuma goes to her, and she dies, but she asks Kuma to take care of her daughter. Which means Bonnie isn't actually Kuma's daughter. Adopted daughter, sure, but biological daughter, no. But that makes Kuma's love and care for her just so much more, because it's like, it is his daughter. That is his daughter. He loves her as if she were his biological daughter, and it's like she never wasn't. And I absolutely love that. I love their bond. I love how their father-daughter relationship works. It's so beautiful and pure. And when Bonnie has the same sickness as her mother, Kuma will spare nothing to find a cure for his daughter. He goes back to the revolutionaries. He ends up going to Vegapunk. He agrees to be a pirate, a warlord, just so he can get the help he needs for Bonnie. He agrees to be an experiment for Bonnie. And they make all these promises together, all their conversations, the adventures they're gonna go to. Kuma initially lying to her, saying, oh, well, you won't be better until your 10th birthday. That's when you'll get better, even though there says she won't live to see her 10th birthday. How he's instilling these beliefs in her and these positivities in her, and how she has this devil fruit because it was given to her at a young age as an experiment itself, and they work with her on it, and he's not fazed, he accepts it, it's their relationship is so pure. It is so loving and caring. Kuma agreeing to slowly have his mind be taken away for him because it means Bonnie is safe. He does all of these things on the elders' orders because of Bonnie, because it's for Bonnie. And all the while, as he's going through his life, he's doing all these things, he's experiencing all these things, he's writing letters to his daughter that don't even get to her because of that stupid Cypher Pull agent who interferes. So Bonnie doesn't even know that her dad's writing her all these letters. And we get to see Kuma on Thriller Bark and what he was thinking when he saw Luffy, and what he was thinking when he saw Zoro take Luffy's pain, and Kuma still having this sense because You know, Nika was known to be rubber and be really stretchy, so he just had this feeling about Luffy the entire time. And then he shows up on Saobody, and oh my goodness, that Saobody flashback from Kuma's perspective hurt so much. It hurts so much more. Because Kuma's just like, no, 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 like, this isn't it. Like, you'll just need to come back in a little bit. It's not your time yet. And, oh my gosh, he was so caring to Luffy without Luffy ever really knowing it. Just the way Kuma looked up to Luffy. He looked up to Luffy because he had faith in who Luffy was. The way he just put his hopes in Luffy being Nika, Luffy being this figure that he's always looked up to, always just admired, and putting his faith in him is just such a beautiful thing to see. And then we also, with this whole flashback, I almost forgot it, we learn Bonnie's real age. She's 12. She's a 12-year-old girl who, because of her H powers, she can manipulate as much as she wants. She can turn into any age she wants. So she disguises herself as an older teenager, older woman, so that she could have gone to sea to look for her father. That's how she got out to sea, because they kind of smuggled her away and let her escape. And she did all of it to find Kuma. All the while, Kuma was writing letters, not realizing his daughter wasn't receiving them. And then he still looked after her while she was on the sea. He still watched out for her, but he kept his promise to the elders, regardless of what he felt. He kept his promise not to see her. This whole backstory of Kuma going to so many different lengths for the people he loves, and especially for Bonnie. Like, his rebellion at the Sorbet Kingdom to become king was for the elderly people that he knew and for Bonnie. Like, he gave so much of his life for his daughter. He gave his life for the people he loved. And his whole life being so self-sacrificial, being so focused on helping others is just it's honestly just such a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. And also just really sad. One thing I will note about Bonnie through all of this, because Bonnie has that same hope about Nika as her father does, she starts using her age fruit to imitate Nika, and those attacks she has, the Nika-like future where she makes her arm really big, and she uses that more than once because she's that inspired by Nika because of what Nika meant to both her and her father. And it's just, I love that, and that hope and determination slowly starting to be questioned and doubted at the end of this section, at the end of 1103, only to have it restored at the very end again, is masterclass in storytelling. And then when it comes time, this is the part that really got me, when it comes time for Kuma to finally have the switch turned off in his mind, and he's talking to Vegapunk this last time, and he's like, oh, what a nuisance I've been all the way to the end. And Vegapunk crying because he says, your death is a nuisance to every person who's ever known and loved you because you're a hero. And it's just, that hurts. And then, oh my gosh, the panel of him just running, always running to help others, always running in his life to reach something else, always going forward. Throughout his entire life, he's always been running to somebody. He's always been running from something and to someone. He's always been running in his life, and he ran to the woman he loved that died and he was never had a life with. He ran to the Revolutionary Army, to the warlords, to the elders, to save Bonnie. He was always running to something. He was always running to save someone. And just that tiring life, he still loved because he loved the people he was with. He always ran. He would always run for the people he loved. And just seeing him run through different stages of his life, but never stopping, never backing down, never falling. And he just kept on going. And then his last words to Vegapunk. And as Vegapunk, before I say his last word, as Vegapunk is getting ready to pull the trigger, he's hesitating, he's crying, and everybody on that island is like silent in homage to Kuma for everything that Kuma has done, because Kuma knows Sentomaru, he knows Kizaru, he knows everybody on Egghead at that point. He's been a warlord, he's been a revolutionary member, he's been so much, he's done so much at this point, and he's giving it all up because of a promise he made for his daughter. And his last words is to tell Bonnie, I wish her a happy 10th birthday. Of everything, that's what got me the most. That's what got me the most. And we get out of the flashback to Saturn still holding Bonnie captive. And Bonnie tries to fight back after he's like, oh, your father's dead. She attacks him with a Nika-like attack, which is really cool. Or she tries to, but she can't, and he's trying to play these mind games with her. It's like, oh, well, you can't because your devil fruit is dependent on reality, and because he gave her the power, he gave her mother the sickness, which gave her the sickness, and it meant Saturn is responsible for literally every atrocity in Kuma and Bonnie's life. And as he's like just manipulating her emotionally at this point, and she's starting to think maybe it was better if I was never alive, maybe if it was better if I was gone, which is very sad. Bonnie, please, we must not think thoughts like that. Bonnie, please. And just as her spirit is being crushed, Kuma comes back, saves his daughter, holds her in his arms, and saves her. Not only does it restore the hope, but it's so symbolic because he's breaking his promise for the first time ever to save her life. And he's coming to see her. He came to see her, to save her life, even though he had promised, even after all this time, that he would not see his daughter. And yet here he is. And he will not let his daughter get touched. This section of chapters was just heartbreaking. There's so much about Kuma's backstory. The chapters we get with his backstory are so heavy and dense, and there's so much in them that needs to be talked about and discussed. Like, that should be a video all by itself. There's so much to Kuma. There's so much to his character, his stories, his motivations, his reasonings. And I love him so much. The fact that he's been running all of his life, and now he ran and reached his daughter at last. He's with her at last, at this moment. It hurts. My heart is very heavy after reading these chapters. It was a lot. But they were such good chapters. I loved this section so much. It recontextualized a lot of the One Piece story that we've seen from Thriller Bark forward, honestly. And a lot of the things we've seen, like, in the background, it hits a lot different when you think of it through another's perspective. Someone like Kuma, someone not in our crew or anyone associated in our group, seeing it from another perspective, from Kuma's perspective, it's a lot heavier. But I love it. I love Kuma. I love Kuma so much. He's such a great character. He's a brilliantly written character. And I'm ready but not ready. I'm not I'm not ready to see what happens next. But yes, that was my review. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I am sorry if my voice sounds weird. It sounds weird to me, so if it sounds weird to y'all, I'm sorry, but my throat is starting to hurt again because this is the longest I've talked in one session in like a week. so I'm actually, my throat's actually starting to hurt now. So I'm gonna go drink a bunch of fluids and rest my throat, but thank you all so much for watching this review. If y'all want to see a video dedicated to just Kuma and Kuma's story, I would absolutely love to do that. If y'all want that. If that's a Patreon exclusive that y'all want, let me know down below. I can totally do Patreon exclusive and we can just chat about Kuma. Other than that, let me know what your thoughts are on this section of chapters. I'm almost caught up, like almost caught up, for real this time. We're almost there. I'm really excited to get caught up with the manga and start playing the waiting game with y'all. So we're almost there. But let me know how you liked this video, and thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all for your patience with me. I appreciate it more than I can ever say. So that's all for this video. Next week will be the final video catching up to One Piece, and then we'll get to go from there and do week-to-week readings, which will be really cool. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time, scholars. Bye!